Hey, what's up guys? In this video I'm going to be demonstrating a little bit further the Scream by Cytomic, and I'm going to be using a sine wave and an oscilloscope, and we're going to look at what is happening. So I'm going to get that trial going on again. So I have a sine wave going through, right? And when I engage this, the sine wave will be it won't look like a sine wave. And I can compare this with the dry signal. So the dry signal is orange, and the Scream signal is like this reddish color. Yeah, let's do that. Right, so you can see that it's being shaped, and it's being affected, and it's kind of being shifted over. And this, as far as I know, is the behavior of diodes. And I want to kind of exaggerate this a bit more. And this video is going to be about the relationship between voltage and bias, and what the diodes are doing. So I'll unfreeze that. Let's kick it up a little bit. I'll increase the pre-gain and bring the level down. I want to be as close as possible to the original here. All right, so we got some interesting distortion there. Let's go into the mod section and see what's going on here. So these have the exact same diode, and what these two diodes are doing is one is affecting the top end. I'll just do that. One is affecting the top end. So there's two here. There's a diode here and a diode here. And what they do is they only allow the flow of electrons to flow in one direction. And we can kind of see that, and I'll get this open. So what this diode down here is doing is it's kind of cutting that off of that sine wave. And this one up here is kind of, not really cutting it off, but it's, kind of not smoothing it out, but kind of making it pointy. And I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to give an example of by setting the bias. So what the bias setting will do is it will actually shift up the sine wave. So this diode part on the top will affect the majority of the signal. I'm going to demonstrate that. I'm going to unfreeze that. All right, so we have our bias here. Right? So it's cutting off that top part first. So what is that? That's like rectification. A diode is kind of like a rectifier. And then inversely, we can do this. And what it's doing is it's cutting off the bottom end there. That's all well and good, but what's really interesting is when you start to play around with the voltage going into this section here, because yeah, these diodes allow electrons to flow in, one direction only, but there's a shut off. Okay, let me just get my pencil tool open here. So we have a diode here, right? And electrons and magic music can go this way, right? But then, it can't go this way. It hits this wall, doesn't allow it to go through. But it's not entirely true. What diodes do is it will, electrons and stuff and electricity will go to this, and it will only be able to jump from here to continue if the voltage is above a certain value, right? So it acts as, basically, think of it as like it blocks both paths, right? But one path is, a little or a lot more lenient than the other, right? So think of it like that. So LEDs, if you have an LED, and that's why LEDs are pretty neat sounding in terms of these uh, you know mods. And this would be an LED. So it emits light. So electricity and magic voltage and stuff like that will go this way. But it won't be able to jump past this because it needs to actually make the LED light, which requires a certain amount of voltage for that to happen, and then it can continue on, right? And conversely, a diode will, if you pump enough voltage this way, it can actually move that way, depending on what's going on. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this here. So I'm going to get this back open. So what's happening, and I want to get the right kind of situation here. All right, so we have this here, and let's compare it to the dry just for fun, right? It's like offset a little bit, but as we decrease the voltage, and the voltage, won't be able to actually jump that diode there. The voltage will, that will actually create kind of a square wave effect. So when, you actually see it, I'll just show you. Right? So it'll jump. And now we have a bit of a square wave situation, right? That was a sine wave, right? But it's like cut that way, bam. And what that's doing is it's essentially, the voltage isn't high enough. Oh, wait, it is. Now we'll go up to here, and like the duty cycle completely changes, and you get more of a squarey harmonics kind of feel here, and that's what those diodes are doing. So those diodes are very dependent on the voltage being fed into them, and something like, I don't know, like a red LED, I guess. Let's look at that. It's squarey as well, and we can adjust the bias. 100 points for whoever, tells me what that is. That is pulse width modulation. Which is pretty cool if you ask me. And yeah, that's your pulse width modulation. So having these diodes in series, right, a bunch of them, or yeah, in series, they're parallel, but having a bunch of them in series, you'll get like, an even more, I guess, kind of resistance to that. And I'm not really qualified to explain what that does, but it's just putting them in series, so there's more of a dependency of, I don't know, whatever. But anyway, so yeah, with the drive at 100 and the voltage and the bias being adjusted, you'll get some interesting results. And let's do one silicone diode and then one LED. Right? And we can decrease the voltage so much that like it won't be able to work. Like they'll be just bumping up against this part here, not having enough voltage to actually plop to the other side, and then we'll get, silence essentially. But without it, we got square waves. But as we increase it, we'll get more of more leeway, more headroom, I guess. All right, and I want to talk about, I guess, the idea of asymmetrical distortion. Right, so if we have Germanium. Okay, so we have this diode up here, which is affecting the top end of the sine wave, and this affecting the bottom. We have different shapes for the top and bottom affected by the different diodes, right? Oops. Right? And, we get the voltage there, and we actually adjust the bias. We can get a different profile of what we are affecting. Right, so we have a different kind of effect, top and bottom, right, as opposed to dry. Right, so if we look at that, and this is a sine wave, so there's not a whole lot of harmonics for it to work with. Right, we have the top, which is a little bit more rounded. I'll actually get that here. This is a bit more rounded, right? And then here, no, this is a bit more square, like cut off, but not quite. And then this one is a little bit more rounded here, which in turn can give you, an interesting result and stuff like that. So like this, it's like, that's a neat little square wave or, distorted waveform. And yeah, that's what's basically happening. So, I don't know. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope you learned stuff. Take care and have a good one.